His name was Caleb. He was 13, tall for his age, with big brown eyes, and a quiet way of walking. Most days, he could be found in the woods behind the town library, not on a bike, not with a phone, just standing there, head tilted, eyes closed, one hand resting gently on the bark of a tree. Some kids called him weird. Some called him Tree Boy. Even teachers didn't know what to make of him, but Caleb didn't mind. Because to him, the trees weren't just trees, they were teachers, and he was listening. The town was called Pine Hollow. It sat in the middle of rolling hills and thick woods, where tall trees whispered in the wind, and deer crossed the roads before dawn. The people were kind, mostly, but small towns have a way of noticing when someone doesn't quite fit in. Caleb didn't go to birthday parties. He didn't play video games. He didn't speak unless he had something real to say. Instead, he spent his time walking trails with a small notebook in his pocket and a pen tied to a string around his neck. He wrote down everything: where squirrels nested, which trees dropped their leaves first, how dry the grass felt after the last rain, what direction the wind came from on the hottest days. Nobody asked why, they just shook their heads. One day after school, Caleb knelt by a tree near the back of the soccer field. He pressed his palm to the trunk and whispered something, almost like a prayer. 3 kids passing by burst into laughter. Is the tree talking back? You dating that oak tree, Caleb? Maybe you should marry the forest. Caleb stood up quietly, brushed off his pants, and walked away. Later, someone had written on his locker in marker, "Leaves for brains." The custodian wiped it off before class. But Caleb had seen it. He didn't cry, he just went back to the woods after school, and kept listening. It happened late in August. The air was thick, too hot for the season. The wind was dry, and the sky looked strange, like it had forgotten how to be blue. Then, around 3 p.m., and smoke rose from the ridge, just beyond the water tower. By nightfall, the trees were on fire. The kind of fire that moves faster than feet, faster than fear. The kind that lights up the horizon and makes even adults tremble. Sirens blared, families grabbed bags and pets, and the firefighters, they needed help, fast, because the fire wasn't just burning trees, it was headed straight for Pine Hollow. The mayor called for an emergency meeting in the town hall. Firefighters drew maps and pointed to possible escape routes, but none of it made sense. The fire had jumped 2 roads, burned through a gap it shouldn't have crossed. It was acting unpredictable. That's when Caleb raised his hand. The room turned. Some people smirked, others frowned. Not now, son, someone said. But the fire chief, a woman named Carol, looked closer. You got something to say, kid? Caleb nodded. He opened his notebook. The fire's following the old dry bed, the one that hasn't held water since spring. Silence. There's a wind shift every evening around 6:45 p.m. It changes direction and speed for about 20 minutes. If you don't plan for it, the fire will double back. People blinked. How did he know that? Because Caleb had written it down, every day, for months, for years. That night, Caleb sat in the fire truck, helmet on his lap, notebook in hand. He showed them where the fire would move next. He led them through a back trail most people had forgotten. He helped plan which trees to cut down to stop the flames from jumping to rooftops. How do you know all this? Carol asked. Caleb looked out the window. Because I don't just walk the forest, he said. I study it, I listen to it, and I care what happens to it. They followed his lead, and when the wind changed, just like Caleb said, it was his plan that kept the fire from reaching the elementary school. It was his trail that led trapped hikers to safety, and it was his voice on the radio, telling the team when to move, and when to wait. The fire raged for 3 long days. The sky stayed orange, even at night, and the air smelled like burnt leaves and old memories. People packed bags and waited near radios. They stood in driveways, watching the ridge with worried eyes. Farmers hosed down barns. Shopkeepers prayed behind closed doors. And then, it stopped. Just like that, the wind shifted one last time, and the flames gave up. Rain followed, not a storm, just a steady, quiet shower, as if the sky was trying to help wash away what was left. When morning came, ash floated down like snow. The trees on the ridge were blackened and bare. The trail markers melted. The ground was charred where deer once walked, but Pine Hollow was still standing. No homes were lost, no lives were taken, no classrooms were burned, no one forgotten, because the boy who once knelt beside tree roots and whispered to bark had spoken up when it mattered most. At the next town meeting, the community center was so full, they had to open the windows. Folding chairs were packed shoulder to shoulder, even the mayor stood in the back. People were quiet at first. Then one man stood, his voice thick with emotion. "I used to think Caleb was odd," he said. "Didn't understand him, never tried, but last night, I walked past my daughter's room while she was sleeping. Her books, her blanket, her stuffed bear, she still has all of it because of him." He sat down with tears in his eyes. The principal stood up next. "We teach science, history, math. But Caleb reminded us that sometimes the best knowledge comes from paying attention. He didn't just save trees, he saved people." The firefighters spoke too. So did hikers who had been rescued thanks to Caleb's map, a park ranger, a grandmother, a boy with asthma, whose family made it out just in time. But the kids who once laughed at Caleb, they sat quiet in the corner, avoiding his eyes, biting their nails, until Caleb, who'd been sitting with his notebook in his lap the whole time, stood up. He didn't clear his throat, he didn't make a speech, he just walked over to one of the boys, who had mocked him months earlier, called him names, even pushed him into the dirt once. And Caleb handed him the notebook. "Want to learn how to read the wind?" he asked. The boy looked up, stunned, and nodded, because even now, Caleb wasn't interested in payback. He was only interested in sharing what mattered. It's been over a year since the fire. Pine Hollow is still healing, but it's not the same town it used to be. Something shifted. Where smoke once choked the sky, new trees are taking root, small ones, hopeful ones. Kids who once spent their afternoons online, now spend them replanting trails, rebuilding footbridges, and learning how fire moves, how forests breathe, how weather speaks, if you know how to listen. And at the middle school, there's a new elective. It's not just a class, it's a whole movement. Forest mapping and fire safety, taught by a local hero. His name is on the sign-out sheet, on the school's volunteer board, on the side of a new hiking map for the region. Mr. Caleb Morgan, still quiet, still kind, still wearing that long necklace with a pen at the end. He doesn't raise his voice in class, doesn't carry a laptop. Instead, he brings notebooks, and every student gets one. Don't just look at the trees, he tells them. Learn from them, watch their shadows, listen to the leaves. The forest always tells the truth, but only if you stop long enough to hear it. And near the edge of the woods, where the fire line once stopped, stands a carved wooden sign, not flashy, just wood and honesty. It reads, "For the boy who listened, when no one else did, and helped the forest speak back." Caleb Morgan, every spring, a new class, takes a field trip to that spot. They touch the sign, they close their eyes, and they listen. Because now, everyone listens. They called him strange, said he talked to trees, but when the fire came, he became the one voice that saved them all. Because real wisdom doesn't always shout, sometimes it stands still, writes everything down, and waits for the world to catch up.